The U.S. continues to engage with Russia over the Iran nuclear agreement, dismissing the possibility that sanctions against the Kremlin might impact nuclear fuel supplies for Iran, and concerned that a deal could be clinched to limit Iran's nuclear program in return for sanctions relief that would bring Iranian oil back onto global markets, roiled by the war in Ukraine. In fact, sources are telling Axios that the Biden administration is even considering removing Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps from a terror blacklist in return for a public commitment from Iran to de-escalate in the region. Joining us with some more insight on this to discuss is retired Air Force Special Operations Commander and Defense Intelligence Technology Innovator, Major Glenn Ignazio, and also with me, retired U.S. Army Major General and Chairman of the Stand Up America U.S. Foundation, Paul E. Vallely. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me.
Hey, thank you.
You know, a lot of people are concerned. We saw Iran launch missiles into Iraq without any fear on Saturday night into Erbil. This deal had apparently been off the table, and now it's back on. First to you, Major Ignazio, why are we working on a deal when we're letting Russia take the lead and we're in a war? We see them in a war with Ukraine.
Yeah, great question. I mean, they were part of this negotiation beforehand, but the concern is actually twofold. Is one, the particular details that are going to be part of this Iran nuclear deal. Also a concern of, is Russia also going to use Iran as a possibility to get around some sanctions? So those are two questions that are really coming up right now. And of course, we need to be concerned of, you know, if Iran's doing a lot of terrorist activity as they do, you know, now that they'll have a big hammer possibly to swing with a nuclear capability, you know, these are the things really to watch in this particular deal.
Mm-hmm. And Major Vallely, I mean, the fact that our current administration would even consider removing Iran off a terror blacklist, knowing their history, a lot of people scratching their heads there about that as well.
Well, certainly they are. What has Biden and this administration done in the State Department? I mean, we're functioning here and operating from a position of weakness, and they know it. The Iranians will always take advantage of that. They're good at it. They're very deceptive. And we have to understand that Russia was a part of their nuclear program right from the beginning, with training and parts and so on. So the Russians they'll oversee this whole agreement, but this agreement should not be made. We should have listened to President Trump and what he did in opposing any kind of an agreement with Iran until they cease being a terror country and supporting terror throughout the world.
It's great input, obviously great points, Major General. And I think, you know, we saw in Venezuela, they released a few Americans here. Now we're seeing that Iran has released 2 detained British citizens. You know, State Department spokesman Ned Price saying that the gaps in nuclear negotiations could be closed if Iran makes the political decision to return to compliance by releasing these detained American citizens. So I guess, again, it's always this 2 steps forward by trying to show some good faith, but ultimately there should be some big red flags. Major Ignazio, to you.
Yes, I mean, the idea of getting a couple of the UK citizens out is outstanding. We do have US citizens that are being held, and getting them released is definitely a benefit. But we also have to think about the bigger picture here. We're talking about a state that sponsors state terrorism throughout the Middle East. And you're talking about a nuclear deal that, again, it was bad before. That's why President Trump canceled it. And now it's like, what are the particular items that are going to be part of this deal? You know, what Iran's been trying to do is get less and less visibility to their programs. And their intention has always been to get a nuclear weapon. So I'm really concerned that there's really going to have any kind of teeth in this agreement that holds them to bear. That's not what we've seen in the past, and I don't see how that's going to be upheld in the future. And as the general said, they are very deceptive in their techniques, and they have not lived up to their word in really anything.
I know, and you know, we need leadership right now, and there are some Democrats who are actually concerned about this as well, and saying, why are we doing this? We haven't even seen the terms of this nuclear deal. Final word from you, Major General Vallely. How do we get, you know, a course correction or maybe this deal to be taken off the table as it was as of last week?
Well, we have to look through the reality prism here when we look at Iran. From my Iranian sources, and I have very good sources, they already have nuclear capability. They have the launch, which is the Shahab missile. They have the guidance system. They've worked with North Korea and all of their nuclear development program and missile launches there in North Korea. They worked hand in hand, and then along with the Russians. So I don't think we should be so naive to think that they don't have a nuclear capability now.
Well, Major General Paul Vallely and Major Glenn Ignacio, thank you for kind of dissecting what is a very important deal that impacts us here around the world as well. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today.
Thank you very
Great,
much.
thank you.
And stay